Rewriting human history without paradigms and enigmas. We start out with probably the oldest myth in the world. This myth is related to out of America populating the world westwards across the Pacific, departing from Peru. We dare to claim it is the oldest myth simply because the related genetics as well as the related artifacts etc. spread out across the whole planet, and these are the only genetics to do so, plus the genetics are the oldest of human history. This on its turn is proven over and over by all ancestral markers, including by the famous mitochondrial DNA and marker. What ancestral markers are, and what these tell us or rather prove us is explained in simple terms in this series and other videos. The probability of this myth and the consequent out of Peru and out of South America hypothesis is extreme. This also because of a series of extremely detailed spatial and temporal associations that no other hypothesis or myth offers. Only as a secondary argument, we mention that the earliest genetics spread westwards in the direction of Mesopotamia and next Africa, or two supposed cradles of humanity in its west, carried by possibly the most dominant currents and winds of this planet. Our scientists mostly seem to forget the power and the importance of the currents in the spreading of about anything, especially around the ancient world. Thor Heyerdahl is one of the most famous scientists and adventurists in this context that understood this very well. With the same myth and this knowledge, he and an international team successfully navigated the Pacific Ocean on a log steerless raft, this deliberately without a compass and sextant. After this successful expedition, he and a team navigated around the world with what he considered a ship traditional for South America and the Pacific. Strikingly, Thor Heyerdahl was inspired by exactly the same out of America westwards across the Pacific myth departing from Peru, and named his raft, expedition, and later still existing museum according to the deity of the myth, kon-tiki. Thor Heyerdahl was a Norwegian adventurer and ethnographer, with a background in biology with specialization in zoology, botany, and geography. In total negation of currents and what Thor Heyerdahl and many after him proved, consensus still claims that Oceania, including Hawaii and Easter Island and also Australia, were populated departing from Asia, which would have been totally against these dominant Pacific currents. Further, we start out with the above myth to have more memorable working hypotheses, and next we will back up this hypothesis with numerous unedited scientific proofs, including all relevant ancestral markers, including also the enigmatic mitochondrial DNA, this time as profound proof in favor of out of the Americas, instead of for the improbable out of Africa. Viracocha, tiki, kon-tiki, or the creator. The myth starts out with a South American deity named Viracocha, also named Tiki, and his direct followers or representants, that seem to be tall-bearded and pale men, which or at least their representations present similarities with the tall-bearded Moai of Easter Island, but especially with the also tall-bearded men of Mesopotamia, or rather the Sumerians. The stand-alone man-like figures with two large eyes, kind of goggles or somewhat alien-looking eyes, sometimes reaching for their belly and more seldomly to their genitals, seem to most often represent Viracocha or the deity. The deity figures sometimes present clear genitals, the male part including testicles, but the male part is not erect and forward, and they do not hold their male part like the human transformation figures or represent ants. On other occasions the genitals are covered by a piece of cloth, of fox hide, they wear a belt and a V-collar, like an enclosure D in gobekli tepe. The deity figures often appear less directly confronted with feral animals, differently from the human transformation figures. Mix of deity, transformation, progenitor, etc. Further, there are figures that present similarities with a man flanked by lions in Gobekli Tepe and the supposed old man of Karahan Tepe, Turkey, with his ribs sticking out and yogi features, an erect male part in his hands, together with a high-flying large curved beaked bird typical for South America. This while both places are located in the south of Turkey, at the heads of Tigris and Euphrates, which both drain into the Austronesian expansion, and with many similar statues and artifacts across the world, with some of them presenting certain aspects of Indus Valley, India, Yogi, Hinduism and Buddhism, enigmatic sidekicks of the Austronesian expansion. The Condor holds significant symbolic importance in Paleolithic South America, particularly in Andean cultures, dating back thousands of years. The Condor was revered as a sacred bird, often depicted in art and ceramics, and associated with spiritual and religious beliefs. This kind of associates the yogi features of the old man in Karahan Tepe with the Condor or Vulture statue found next to him. It also connects the supposed vulture on Pillar 43 or the vulture stone or pillar with also a headless man and three enigmatic supposed bags pillar in Gobekli Tepe. All of these started out in Peru, and out of certain other places in South America, involving the Austronesian expansions, population Y, and the ancestral marker PV92.